gotta read it out loud.
Oh, I'll read it to you?
Yeah.
Hey, Derek and Bethany, we hear you talk a lot about investment properties. How do you buy your first investment property? Buck.
Naked.
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
No, just read it again.
Okay. Hey, Derek and Bethany. Speak up. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Derek and Bethany. We hear you talk a lot about investment properties. How do you buy your first investment property? Buck and a kid. Is that wrong?
You're spot on. You're spot on.
What's wrong?
All right, so the emphasis is on the first syllable.
This is how we have lunch.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Hey, Derek and Bethany. We hear you talk a lot about investment properties. How do you buy your first investment property? Buck and a kid. Hey, Derek and Bethany. We hear you talk a lot about investment properties. How do you buy your first investment property?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Buck and a kid.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? Hey, Derek and Bethany. We hear you talk a lot about investment properties. How do you buy your first investment property? Buck naked.
Is it naked? Wow. You really screwed me up on that one. I did not realize that was
Well, Buck, truth be told, it's freaking cold outside. And because of that, I may jitter a little, and it's specifically because it's freezing outside, but that doesn't matter. Buck, you asked a question, and I'd really like to answer that question. So what does it take to buy your first investment property, or what do those steps look like? Let's go over a few with you right now. There's 4 steps to finding your first investment property when it comes to short-term rentals, which is the only one I'm gonna go over right now. I'm not gonna go over long-term rentals. I'm not gonna go over some other options like commercial. I'm just gonna go over short-term rentals. The way I look at it, you have 4 steps. You need to find your financing, you need to find your location, you need to do your research, and then find the property. Just remember it as an acronym. FLRP. Sounds weird, but you'll never forget it. So when it comes to financing, the financing that you're gonna wanna do all depends on, do you own a property currently or not? So if you own a property currently, you need to take advantage of what's called a second home mortgage. What does that look like? Well, you need to find a property in a place that's decently far away from you, somewhere like a vacation rental, and that's the property you need to go after because you're only required to put 10% down on that property, which is crazy because your typical property, if you're doing first investment, is gonna be 20 plus. So keep that in mind when you're looking at a property. If you own a property that's a primary residence, you can go get a second home with only 10% down so you don't have to have all that capital. If you have a lot of money in your home, that's called equity. That equity that's in your current home, you can take that equity out or a percentage of that equity and use that as down payment on a second home. If you don't have all the money in the finances to go out and go buy a second home property. And when you do that, you just want to go and talk to a bank about a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. It's a great option to help you with those finances. So your second thing you need to do is you need to find your location. Figure out where you want to go to buy that second home or to figure out where you want to go to buy that investment property. So for us, we have a property in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It's 3.5 hours away from us, but it's somewhere that we go on a regular basis for vacation. You need to look at properties that are a vacation destination or a tourist attracted vacation destination. And the reason why is because you can almost guarantee that you're gonna be able to rent that property out on a nightly rate consistently and have the least amount of vacancy. Why is that important? Because if you don't have somebody renting your property, you're not gonna make any money. So with a tourist place, somewhere where people go and it's a high tourist attraction area, if you're able to get a property there and rent it out on a nightly rate, you're gonna make the most money you can on a short-term rental consistently instead of having to worry about vacant months. If you want to go and see an example of this, check out our Airbnb episode we just did, our React episode my wife and I just did on an Airbnb right outside of New York for a perfect prime example of a short-term rental in a great tourist destination. So your first step is going to be doing your research. You want to hire an agent. That agent needs to know what they're talking about when it comes to short-term rentals. That's number one, first and foremost. They're the ones that are going to help you find that property. Your agent is going to be able to look and see what are the permit restrictions in that area. So there's going to be some type of short-term rental permit restrictions depending on where it is. Nashville permit restrictions for a short-term rental are extremely, extremely strict. Whereas Gatlinburg's permit restriction rentals, they're actually not bad at all. Those permits are pretty easy to get. There's barely any restrictions, and that's why it's such a great spot. Your next step with doing your research is research the property management company that's going to manage your property. If you're buying a short-term rental and that short-term rental is out 3 hours plus away from you, you're not going to manage that property yourself. It's too far away. So if something happens, you need somebody or a company that's worth it, that's going to be able to take care of that problem immediately. If you have a hot tub at your short-term rental and the hot tub doesn't work and the circuit board goes out, you need somebody that's able to get that done and fixed immediately within a 24 to 48 hour period so that you're not messing up your rental nights. And they don't have to move those people over to another rental because yours specifically doesn't do what it's supposed to do. A rental company is so important, and those percentages can range anywhere from 10% up to 30% of your nightly rate. So when it comes to actually interviewing those people, you need to make sure that you're interviewing them based off of not the number of what they charge, but what exactly do they provide for that percentage that they charge. Last thing when it comes to finding that property is going to be finding a property that is furnished. It is so crucial for you to be able to find a property that's furnished that you don't have to do anything to, and you can go ahead and buy it furnished and rent it out from the day you close on that property and start making money. Because at the end of the day, if it's furnished fully and you have everything that you can that's in that property for you to be able to rent that out on a nightly basis from the time you close, that's super important specifically because at that point, from then on, you can take your time updating that property, your time making it worth somebody's while to come there, adding in a couple things here and there to be able to sleep more people. And that to me is probably the most important piece of finding a property is if you can get it furnished or not. All right, okay, it's really cold. I never pop my collar, so that tells you how cold it is. Thank you for joining us on another episode. I hope you got something out of this short-term rental episode. We love short-term rentals at the Trainer Group. Man, do I love short-term rentals, and I'd love to talk to you more about it. So if you like this episode, comment below, send me a DM, like us on our YouTube page, send me any type of message. Let's sit down, let's talk about it over coffee and get you into your first investment property. I'm freezing. I'll talk to you later. So keep that in mind when you're looking at short-term rental in the long run. That doesn't make any sense. All right, you ready? All right, here we go, you ready? Because you're gonna have PMI in that 10%. That's fun. So, what's happening? Sorry, I don't know what that was. All right, go. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, let's go. All right, ready? Go.
Hi, Derek and Bethany. Seriously?
I don't know what you said.
Buck and a kid. Okay, I can't do it anymore. Let Derek do it because I can't. Oh my God. I gotta go get Charlie.
Why are you acting like you're leaving?
Why did y'all say that?
Because you did it like 5 times and you still had no clue.
No. All you had to say was his name.
I know.
Naked.
That's the whole point. Oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing.
Naked.
Oh,
And the whole time we're laughing and Bethany's like,
But naked.
what happened? Did I say his name wrong? Yeah, you did. That was the greatest. That was the best intro ever.